Welcome back to another episode of the Queer Voices Sports Podcast, where once again we are joined by a guest from the world of sport, and I'm really pleased to say this time that we've not had to go too far to find an excellent guest. On campus here at Cardiff Met, we've got Lisa Newton, head coach of the women's rugby team here at the university. Lisa, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
Obviously, you're a former Welsh international that's gone to the very top of the game, played at the Six Nations and the World Cup. Right now, you're head of women's rugby at Met, and you've been in that role since 2019. How have you found that 6 years that you've been here?
Do you know what? It's really interesting. So when I left university, went travelling, went to Canada for a good few years, and then came back and sort of found my way back into Met. So in 2019, when I got involved, the role was only part-time, and it wasn't enough that I could only do that job. So I had a full-time job, I think, in construction at the time, and did Met as a side hustle is what the kids would call it now. But so did that, which I found that period before COVID really challenging, just because it probably needed more time and attention than I was able to give it. So when it was part-time, I found it tough. Then COVID happened and shut everything down, which was brutal. And then I think for the next year after COVID, I was still part-time. And then the university 2 years ago decided to make this position a full-time position, which is exactly what it needed. So, yeah, my personal time was a rocky start, if you like, just because I wanted to give more and I felt like I could give more. I think at the moment we're probably reaping the benefits of a well-resourced programme, which is good. And then there was a real growth in the programme as well. So the players that were coming in at the time, so during COVID, rugby for females shut down in Wales, basically. And the top tier athletes were being sent over into the PWR because there was no rugby here. They needed to be playing because the World Cup moved to, it was supposed to be 2020, went to 2021. And then, something. I think it was in 2021. I was supposed to be prepping for that World Cup, but obviously weren't playing. And the training restrictions were, I think we were probably a bit stricter in Wales than England was. And England recognised the PWR, the women's prem, as performance rugby, whereas there wasn't, other than national squad, there wasn't any women's rugby that was classified as performance. So they fell under the community guidelines, which was 15 players, 2 metres apart.
Yeah.
Which was challenging. So after COVID, when we were trying to rebuild the programme and try to get girls back into training and things like that, we had to follow those restrictions, but we'd missed a whole group of recruitment because everyone was being told to play their rugby across the bridge. So it's been tough. The recruitment has been good for us. So since that year, we've built, and I think, again, this season's probably a good evidence of how we've built up that.
The next question I was going to ask you was what your vision was when you came into the role in 2019. But I guess with it being part-time then, did your vision have to be slightly limited compared to what it then became once you transitioned into that full-time role?
Yeah, maybe. I think so I came here, I studied here, and I left, I finally graduated because I did take my time to do it in 2011. And I had such a strong connection to being an archer and what my experience here was. Now, I had a great coach at the time, was one of our lecturers here, Kylie Wilson, and so she made my experience good. Don't get me wrong, the academics, all the rest of it, yes, but rugby was why I was really here. I had a great experience. And then when I came back from Canada, I think it was like 2016-ish, something like that. The years all blur now after COVID messed that up, I think.
Yeah, they really do.
I think it was a bit of a challenging time. You could start to see the programme change and maybe lose the performance part of it. And it wasn't through a lack of players. It was more players were spread quite thin. They were in multiple programs. There were girls playing in BUCS and PWR week in, week out, and that takes its toll, you know. So when I came in, what I wanted to do was recreate the culture and the feeling of what it means to be an archer. Because it's really important to me. Like I identified as that, and it was you know, something I boasted about, and I want girls to be able to have that journey, and then but also go on then to replicate it in other areas as well. So next team they go to, you know, the culture, they buy into the culture, and they buy into building towards something bigger than themselves. And I think you know, university sport, it's not like any other. You never have the same team out twice because half your team has graduated out and things like that. So yeah, I think probably a bit around like legacy of being an archer is probably what I wanted to go after. Yeah, I don't know if I answered your question then.
Yeah, well, and you've also actually got on to the next question, which is the type of environment that you've looked to create. And I was going to ask how you feel that's made better players and better people, but you touched there on the fact that the players move through quickly, and you want them to take the things they've learned here on into the next stage of their career. How important is that to you, and kind of how much have you had the opportunity to reflect on the impact that you've had on the people that have graduated from Met?
Yeah, it's a good question, that is. I think that, like, the first thing was changing the attitudes around the S&C and the stuff that isn't necessarily rugby. Like, if you're not recovering well, then you're not going to be able to perform well. It's a short turnaround. You're training twice in between. You know, there's those type of challenges. And student culture, like, they do like to go out and drink, and that doesn't help your recovery, which is fine. Like, I embrace that side, like, of the process. Like, they are young adults who are going through all sorts of changes, being away from home for the first time potentially, the freedom that they're experiencing. So I want to continue to celebrate the student sort of experience. But it was like reinforcing that actually these things are in place to make you a better rugby player, and the rugby skills will only take us so far if we're not getting that athletic development piece. Yeah. So changing the mindset, I guess, around like why gym is important and not just a tick box, and that actually when you're in there, it should feel like you're in a game. You know, you should be on those reps. You should be pushing to your best, and because it's part of the performance, if you like. Mm. So that was one of the big things we had to change about the culture. And I guess through that time, then there was a lot of changes that were made by Met Sport as well. So the program got resourced better. We've now got a full-time physiotherapist, which not many programs can say. We've got a lead S&C in Adam, who's doing a fantastic job, who is genuinely excited about working with female athletes and can see the benefit of what he's doing with them as well, because the proof is in the pudding when you look at the last two games of the season, how physical they were, and our girls didn't bat an eyelid at it, you know. So yeah, I think those things were some of the things that were the biggest changes for me.
And then so on that bit of making better people and them taking the lessons they've learnt here onto the next club that they go to and potentially their international careers. Yeah, how have you had the opportunity to sit back and at any point and go, I'm really proud of the impact that I've had and the start that I've given these players?
Probably not, because it's not something I like to do. I, as an individual, probably don't really like the fuss and the spotlight. So me having to sit back and talk about how well I've done just doesn't feel right. And also
that's why I'm making a point of doing it, because I think it is important to recognise.
Yeah, and I think I did reflect yesterday, because obviously we had that conversation in the interview, and obviously talks about the other staff that are involved in it and stuff like that. And you said something, and I went away and thought about it, and I often tell the girls to celebrate successes, no matter how small or big they are, and then I'm actively avoiding any sort of public acknowledgement. Maybe, I don't know what it is, but I probably should reflect more in that way.
Yeah, it's something though, isn't it, where it's so easy to celebrate other people's success, especially when you care about them, and to encourage them to celebrate it, but so much harder to do it for yourself.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure why I find it such a struggle. Possibly as an individual, a bit of a joker, do you know what I mean? So then when I have to do something that's a bit serious, it probably makes me feel a bit awkward, maybe. So
with the better players and better people that you've helped to create, that's obviously reaped the success this year. So you're fresh off not only winning the BUCS Super Rugby title, first time that Met has been winning that since the days that you were involved as a player. I believe it's 2010 was when you captained the side to
It was.
victory.
You've done some good research.
And then 2011 they UOC won again, did they?
2011, there was no name on the trophy, and I can't remember what happened that year, but 2012 was UOC on the trophy,
okay.
So I'm not sure what went on in that year. I'd have to Google it.
Title winning as a captain and as a coach, and then recognised last night at the Cardiff Met SU Sport Awards by winning Coach of the Year and also being part of winning BUCS Team of the Year. How would you sum up the year that this team and yourself have just had?
Oh my goodness, how do you sum it up? I think, it was a bit of a roller coaster because we had a really great pre-season. There were some logistical things that meant that some freshers of good quality weren't able to come to it. Our first game against Edinburgh was in Freshers Week, so very early on in the season. So for those girls who we didn't really know, coming to training on Monday, some of them were involved just because of positional deficits on the Wednesday. So quite a tough start to the season to try and embed what the things that had gone on during pre-season into players who came in late. And then we didn't sort of hit the ground running like we had the previous year. So the previous year, we came into that Edinburgh fixture expecting a really competitive game, and we almost shocked ourselves by putting, I think it was like 46-12. So probably a little bit of relaxed. We're a bit too relaxed as a team going into it, because we had worked really hard in pre-season, so we'd done a lot of prep. Didn't quite connect in the way we thought it was going to on the field, and that was probably so we had that game, then we had Exeter, which were tough losses, but games that we knew we could be more competitive in than we were. So that was the kind of start of the season. Then we sort of had Clash, which pulled us back up.
Yes.
Because it's not in just the scoreline, but the whole event. I think they said there was 9,000 tickets sold this year or something silly. So, that's an occasion that we really bookmark in the calendar, because it is an opportunity to celebrate the team. And we had another Clash just before Christmas, which was nice to go into the break. But we had a couple of challenges through the season. So with Celtic Challenge being part of the pathway, and us having a considerable amount of Welsh qualified girls, I think it was 26 of them altogether, went off into different training environments. And we still had fixtures during that time. So Loughborough and Hartbury at the end of the season, which were competitive fixtures. So a different story to the beginning of the season, but still losses, unfortunately, which then put us in 5th place for the league finish. I think watching Hartbury get their trophy, or the league winning trophy, at the last game of our regular season was tough on Rugby 1,
Yes.
because that's it means a lot to Rugby 1, to any rugby player at Cardiff Met. So that happened. Then we worked really hard in preparation for the quarter-final against Edinburgh. We knew it was going to be a challenge, sort of bringing girls back in and trying to integrate everyone back together. So there's 2 Celtic Challenge teams, so there's 2 sets of environments plus ours. So you're trying to mix it back in and get the best out of all of them, but without getting any conflict in there as well. And I'm not talking about conflict of players, I'm talking about the conflict of rugby, like what are we trying to do? Well, here it looks very different in those environments.
Yeah.
And then had a great time up in Edinburgh. I think they had a tough Celtic challenge where they picked up some injuries through theirs. So it wasn't them in full flight, but as performance sport, we're there to win. And then came the old adversary of Hartpury in the semi-final, and it just felt different. It felt like the girls had self-belief that I haven't seen them have before, and I loved it. The build-up to it was brilliant. We knew that we can outwork them. We knew that we could physically beat them up, and it's exactly what we did. And the girls, they came out firing. They didn't take a backward step. They were always on the front foot. There was one, I think it might have been like, they kicked the first kick off. They kicked to us. We cleared. Went over the fullback. Fullback's gone back to gather, and you can see it on the video clip. There's about 6 Met girls around one Hartpury girl, and they were just up for it. Everything went right that day. So, yeah,
do you think the physical and slightly scrappy nature of that final game against Hartpury and seeing them lift that trophy, do you reckon that had just really kind of given the girls that fight in them that they then took into that semi-final?
Yes, I think so. The league win our home field, that was tough. Added on top of that is the fact that we've met Hartpury in the semi-final for the previous 2 seasons as well, and in those games, the first game wasn't really competitive. Second game, we're getting closer. Third game, now is our opportunity. Yeah. And there's a few girls that have been in this squad so we've got the Carr twins who've been here 5 years. We've got Sarah and Nicole who've been here 4 years. So this is their last opportunity to do this. Yeah. And everyone was up for it. Everyone wanted it.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be one of the greatest days in recent Met sporting history. Obviously, everything happening here at Kincoid with the first varsity win over Bath.
Yeah.
Your team going there and winning it against Hartpury, and then the men nearly doing the double, taking it to extra time. It was just following along that day and getting to present some of the sport and commentate on it was incredible. I think stands testament to what a sporting setup we've got here at Met.
Absolutely, and I take Sports Awards last night as an example. The amount of sports are up there. Women's Aussie Rules getting their first trophy, and I think it was as the MVP from the men's Aussie Rules teams. And I just think it's not just about rugby. I think there's quite often a bit of a bias from the outside looking in about rugby being so big here, but it's not the only sport that's big. There's a lot of people involved in rugby, but in terms of the selection of sport, the effort that's put into to managing lesser known sports as well, Aussie Rules. It's not something I've ever played, although I would love. Well, probably not now, but back in the day, I would have loved to give it a go. So yeah, and lacrosse is another one.
Yeah.
Completely sort of student-led teams that are having great successes, and I love that about this university.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah. But sticking with rugby,
Sorry.
you then went to Rodney Parade. So you were the first team to stop Hartpury reaching a BUCS final. Mm-hmm. Then you were the first Welsh team to be in it, and you got to play the final in Wales. First time it's been in Wales, I believe, for the women.
Yeah.
Up against Loughborough, one of the greatest names in university sport.
The Giants, I think, yeah.
And I was watching that match on a stream and kind of went ahead in this first half, and I was like, oh my God, you're going to do this. This is happening. And then Loughborough came back, held that lead at the break. You came out in the second half, went ahead again, and then Loughborough came back again. And it was just so tense watching it. I can't imagine what it was like there. So can you just take us through the emotions that you had as the coach on the side of the pitch through the game?
Well, I think leading up to it, we never talked about winning. We never talked about the outcome.
Okay.
Our focus was always on the performance, putting in a winning performance. That's what we asked them for. We didn't ask them for a winning performance, right? So we tried to take, and we worked hard around some of the distractions that could happen, some of the things that on social media, who's saying what. Loughborough were very much the favourites going into that. I think what people don't realise is that actually we do well when that's the case. Like when we're the underdogs, when we're, just punching above our weight, basically. And the girls, there was a weird calmness about them, which I tried to mirror, but I don't know if I kept it in as well as they did, because I think the self-belief they got went into the Hartpury game with, then built on for that game, and they felt like they could do it, and they did. I think during the game, that got a bit chaotic. So first half weathered a little bit of the great score first. Sav, player of the match in semi-final, final, and female archer of the year, right?
Yeah.
So big dog. I think she got that score, and it was like, okay, like settle the nerves, great, we've got on ball, and then we let 2 really easy line breaks go, and I thought no, and we talked about this because we do have a habit of scoring, and then take our foot off the gas, and making a silly mistake, and it even happened in the Hartpury game where they kicked off, we failed to clear, and they scored 2 phases later or something. So I think at half-time, it was a reminder of, okay, like that's draw a line under that. This isn't the winning performance we've been talking about. So what is it we need to do? Give our technical, tactical points, whatever. And the girls came out and they pulled it out the bag. I think there was a little bit of time where I think we were maybe like 10 points up or 9 points up or something. And then we started playing rugby like Fiji. And I was like, whoa, what are we doing? Yeah. I was like, I've never seen us do this before, and I've told you to be brave, but not that bloody brave. Like, wind it back in. And, I think me and Snowy were well, yeah, I was like, what? It just felt like, what game have I walked back into here? Because it was very different to any rugby we'd played. So we got the messages on to like, okay, let's calm down a little bit, go through the processes. Freya slotted the 2 kicks, got a little bit better, and then obviously we made some changes, which made an impact initially, and then they had that try, didn't they, which put us under a bit of pressure and made it a 1-point game, which, yeah, I mean, for a spectator, I'm sure it made it really exciting, but for my blood pressure, it probably wasn't the best thing.
No. I mean, I would have been happy as a Met fan for it to be slightly less tense, but I mean, at the same time, what a way to do it, and I'm sure that tension then probably fed into a really, really good celebration afterwards. Yes,
it did, absolutely. I think there was, a bit of disbelief, a bit of like, oh my God, we've done it, and like you could tell like just how much it meant to everyone after the game. The way the girls were like just congratulating each other for what they did, and I think those moments they're just really special, and I remember mine vividly from however many years ago that is, and I'm just so pleased that the graduating girls got that opportunity.
And you were interviewed on pitch at the end of the game with the trophy, and you were pointing out those wins that you got. Did you get the chance to chat to the girls and show them that you said you were going to?
I did. I think I made some sort of joke about it. I did drink a beer out of the cup later on in the night, probably while telling them all, I did this, look at this is me. But I mean, yeah, I think they know what it means to me as well. I think they can tell by how I want it for them, and it's not like a desperation. Like I know what the opportunities that it's going to bring them as well. I think you look at how well connected Cardiff Met women's rugby is to the pathway. We've got 18s coming into us this season. We've got 18s who were with us last season, technically this season, who are now going into under 20s to push on and kick on there. We've got girls being called up to Six Nations training squads, and for me, this programme is here to prepare you for that. We're obviously out to perform as well, but we're here to prepare you for whatever's next, and it doesn't always have to be performance rugby. It could be you're going back home to get a real job, and you stay a weekend warrior, and that's fine, but hopefully we'll give you the tools to succeed in whatever that is. And yeah, I hope that what we're giving them here is transferring into those environments to allow them to be successful there.
Do you think, just on that, your experience as someone that got to the very top of rugby, it's a huge part of your life and your identity, but the fact that you also worked those, as you put it there, the real world jobs alongside being involved with rugby, do you think that gives you kind of a perspective that they can connect with and they respect, where they know that you're coming from a place of knowledge?
Yeah, I think so. I think the game has changed now, right? So when the possibility of being a professional female rugby player like actually happened in Wales, like it's different. What your week looks like is very different. It's not working a full day, travelling somewhere to train, travelling back. So you might start your job at 8 a.m. You're not getting to bed till 11 at night. You got to do it all again the next day. So I think there's probably, and I think our girls do appreciate the fact that they were people like Snowy, who's part of our programme, who was there during that transition into professionalism and who paved the way, because they were athletes then who were acting professional and were doing the professional things but without being paid for it. So how do you keep that mentality, because you want that when you're professional and it's easier, or you're better, not easier is the wrong word, better supported probably to be successful then.
The course that we have here at Cardiff Met, the Sport Broadcast Masters, would not be able to be the course it is if it wasn't for the achievements and the levels that the sports teams here play at. So really wanted to kind of take the opportunity to pay tribute to that, especially given the extraordinary success that you've led your team to this year. So congratulations on that year and again on the awards last night. I'm only sorry that yours was a plate, so it's a bit more difficult to drink off than if it was a cup. I was saying to Sam, I don't know whether the lid came off hers so she could have a drink out of it.
They definitely did that. I saw it. Yeah.
Good. Moving on to sort of standard fare for this podcast. I wanted to speak with you about your sexuality and how that has intersected with your rugby career. So if we start off first, going back as a player, especially as a young player, were those two elements of your identity quite separate? Were they ones that you have sitting next to one another quite comfortably? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a good question, that is, and it's probably not one I've ever really thought about.
Okay.
I think the environments that I was in when I was younger probably supported me to be my authentic self. So in sporting environments, I never felt like I had to hide who I was and what my sexuality or who my partner was at the time, or anything like that. In those environments, I didn't feel it. External to that was quite obvious that there were some stereotypes made about you're a female rugby player, then you must be gay, or a more offensive word maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then did that continue on as you got to more elite level, or did you feel that you've had to just fully focus on yourself as a player and put your sexuality to one side?
I think, again, great question. I think as I went more into performance, there probably was a bit more, we don't want to know about that because you're here to play rugby, which, like, at the time was like, okay, that's just how it is. I think there was probably quite a few older women in the squad at the time who maybe weren't as comfortable being out as I was at that point in my life. So I think there could have been a little bit of that, like, you don't see it, like it doesn't exist sort of thing. But I think that was probably more from their experience and then trying to pass it on to us. But I think knowing what I know now as a coach, that I think when you stop treating players as people, you end up in a bit of trouble and you don't really get the best from them. So, but I don't think that was a coaching environment thing. I felt that more from the senior players probably in the squad.
So with you touching on your coaching there, is that something that for you has kind of been written into how you conduct yourself as a coach and the environment you create, that you want to make sure that people feel included no matter their sexuality, no matter their background?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like, diversity is super important to me, and I just think I'm just trying to think of an example. I'm going to give you a terrible example maybe, but we'll try. So in my life, right, if people are always saying yes around me, I think, well, hang on a second, I need to find someone to say no, because that's the person who's going to challenge, like, either make me justify what I'm doing and then me go, yeah, that's absolutely the hill I'm willing to die on. Or, do you know what I mean? Just give me a different perspective sometimes. And like, if we're all the same, if our backgrounds are all the same, how do we ever get to this point where we're challenging each other and then and being really, like, having, like, courage in the convictions of what we're saying and doing? Like, why are we doing this? And everyone's like, oh, because it's good for the girls and this will get development, but not, like, actually why? When someone asks you to justify it and saying, you know, I think you get some really deep reflections at that point. So I think diversity in spaces is really important, and especially in team sports, because you have a team of wingers, you're probably not going to be a very successful team. Do you know what I mean? So it's about learning, and I think rugby does it really beautiful. Well, almost really beautifully, but we'll probably come on to that. But as a sport, does it really beautifully because there is an appreciation for everyone. You have strong players who are in the front row. You have thinkers who are 9s and 10s. You have wingers who can sidestep and pacey, and their individuality is celebrated. And, like, I love that. And they should be celebrated as people as well, not just as the player part of them, you know? So I don't know if that was a good example or not.
No, really good. And I completely agree with you on diversity. And I thought it was awesome just going back to that final that you had. That was top of your mind when you were being interviewed on the pitch afterwards, that you went to diversity as one of the side's key strengths. And it felt to me like it just really showed that it's not just a buzzword that feels like the right thing for you to say. It is genuinely part of everything that you do, which
absolutely.
I really respect.
Thank you.
So you obviously coach young women who are at a crucial point in their life, and often that can be in terms of discovering and exploring their identity and kind of working out where their journey's going to go going forwards. Have you had situations where players have approached you and they've needed to talk about their sexuality or their gender identity or anything like that? And how do you look to support players in that situation?
That's an interesting one, that is. I can't think of an example where someone has out and out come and sort of said that to me. I think, like, I don't lead with my sexuality, that's ridiculous, but the team knows that I've got 2 beautiful children who've got another mother. Does that make sense? So that they, and although we're separated now, they understand that, like, that's who I am, and I'm a mum, but I'm also a gay woman, and all the rest of that stuff. That, you know, I'm a real human being as well, and so there's that. So I think there is a level of comfortability that, you know, I say this, like, I don't care what your sexuality is. If you are having a moment where you need some clarity and you need to bounce ideas off somebody, I will listen. If you're having trouble with a partner, whether it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend, there's no judgment from my part, because I don't care what the other side is. My care is about you and you as a person and your growth, rather than who you're dating, because I don't know why people care so much, to be honest, but it's in all the media and all the news all the time, isn't it? So I just think, like, as what I want them to know is that I care about them as individuals, and then whatever comes around them by extension of that, I guess.
We were talking before we started recording where I was saying about finding a sport environment, one that I'd always been difficult to be out in, to be authentically myself. And I I often kind of look at women's sport, and you touched on the stereotyping.
Yeah.
It's unfair to look at women's sport and think, well, because of those stereotypes, it's easier to be a lesbian woman in women's sport than it is to be a gay man or a queer man in men's sport. But do you think that there are things that women's sport does and has kind of just about its values that do help women with their sexuality within sport?
I think for me, when I was a student here, the percentage of gay people was probably higher than it is now.
Okay.
So, but I don't think
within the student body as a whole, or within the sports teams?
Probably student body within the sport teams that I've been working in. So that's not to say there isn't a good mixture of sexualities in there, but I think there's probably something around like the advancement of female sport, so the access that the females are now getting and the like growth of it, more people are playing. So obviously we're going to see a change in the statistics there around that. And I think probably when I was younger, when I was trying to figure out who I was, I met a gay person playing rugby on a one-off, and then I was like, maybe I'd like to try rugby and be around more people who've got that, because that is who I was, and I didn't know how to express it. I didn't necessarily have role models or openly out and role models, so I had to go try and find some somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
So that could be why I ended up in sport, maybe. So because I think like once upon a time, and I look back at some of the community clubs that I was involved in before I came here. So I joined a senior team outside of university, and predominantly gay women. Never made me feel uncomfortable, anything like that, but took me under their wing because I think they recognised that I needed some people that I could connect with about that isn't, that is that. I needed to find gay women to take me under their wing and not teach me how to be gay, but like to just like give me that acceptance and that understanding of what it was, because I didn't think I didn't know what it was. And I identified for bisexual for a really long time because I was scared of being gay.
Yes.
Which I feel like is
quite a common thing.
Yeah.
I think what you touched on there about not knowing how to be gay, not knowing how to be queer is again such a common experience, because we see very sort of they're getting much better written now, but previously often quite poorly written or one-dimensionally written characters in TV and movies.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's not me. I know that there's certain aspects of what they do that I can identify with, but that person's not me. Okay. It's really difficult to find examples of how you should be as a queer person. So, yeah, it's interesting that rugby kind of helped you find those examples.
I think there was probably, and again, I'm making some assumptions here, so I don't know this for fact, but I think there was probably a time in women's rugby's sort of development where actually that was the case, of how it happened, and that's why the stereotype probably ended up being the way it was, is because you found opportunities to meet people like you. And
now the stereotyping going is obviously a positive thing, because stereotypes are often offensive and not helpful, and then as you've touched on, it opens up women's sport to more people think, actually, this is something I can be involved in, and I'm not going to be labelled as being gay. Do you think it potentially then loses that aspect of community that you found when you were getting into it? Or?
So first of all, I think the youth, sort of the youngsters, whatever you want to call them, they're changing to, I don't see as much commonality between my experience and their experience. Okay. I think across their peers, they're probably a bit more accepting, and they now it's visible to see people like them. Does that make sense? So, and whether you're masculine presenting and straight, or feminine presenting and gay, because that comes under that brings another layer of like challenge, doesn't it? So I think that there's a bit more acceptance at that age group across the board, not just in sport. I think sport often mirrors our political landscape.
Yes.
So I think with the change in times and the dropping of the stereotypes, it's great. I want that. But also with that, you see people coming in who maybe haven't had the experiences of some of the girls in there and aren't really aware of how they might sound because they are repeating things they hear at home or with the people they are outside of sport. So I don't know if I've said that very well, but I'm going to give you an example. One of the girls at some point when the Olympics was on, the boxer,
Imani Khalif, I want to say.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try and butcher her name, but I think you said it beautifully there. So it was horrific what they did. Yeah, really and was. One of the girls came into, I think it was in pre-season actually, when the girls came in and was like, they've let a man in women's boxing. And I was like, okay, first of all, where are you getting your information from? I was like, Google it. Because, do you know what I mean? And I think sometimes, I don't think 20 years ago, but I don't think that would have even been a conversation. Do you know what I mean?
As in...
Within the sport.
No one would have worried that she was boxing and was masculine presenting.
And then people are now saying this about her. So it wouldn't have... I guess it just wouldn't have been a conversation because it wasn't a worry. Whereas, like, politically, people are... I don't know why, but they seem to have this worry about trans women. And then, actually, a masculine presenting woman has now been victimised. And where are the turfs to stick up for her? But, I mean, that's a whole other bit, isn't it? So, yeah. I think so. I think there's something in there around, like, it's the identity of rugby is changing and the makeup of the people who are involved in it. And we love that. I think we do have to make sure that we're maintaining our values within that and making sure that like for us here, obviously I can't control all rugby, but for us here, better people make better rugby players. And what does a better person look and feel like to you? Like, that's important.
And on the aspect of the values of women's sport that potentially can make it a more inclusive environment than we often see in men's sport, what are some of those key elements, do you think, that men's sport could learn?
I think, like, my experience is very much in women's rugby, so my talking here, my points here probably will come from that viewpoint more than experience anywhere else. So I'm going to say that first of all. I think, you know, there are some things that we know about women. We know that we have to learn empathy much earlier. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are things, you know, we have the what's the one? We mature sooner than boys do, but like actually that's not true. We're held to account more than boys are at a younger age, right? So, I think there are loads of things that the sports should share with each other. Like the best practice stuff, and I'm not necessarily like the technical tactical bit of it, but the good culture bit and the good people bit. I think all sports will thrive from that, because we know that our like athletes in the women's program will go on to probably leadership roles, and we want them to have good impact on the people around them as well, because if we're all a bit nicer to each other, we'll probably be a bit happier as well.
Yes.
So yeah, I think the values of sport, I think, you know, as a coach, I don't know what the end product is. I think coaching is a continuous learning journey. So I don't know if I've got it completely right. Like, and I'm sure if we have this conversation in maybe 5 years' time, it might look a little bit different in terms of what I'm saying there. But I think a bit of empathy and a bit of care for the individual, especially in performance sport, care for the individual tends to, because you have to get results. So you know, you don't always have the privilege of being able to care in the same capacity when you're got to get a win, basically.
On this podcast before, when I've had people from the Cardiff Lions, and then with people I've played rugby with who were straight but more comfortable with their sexuality, we've talked about and we joked about how, for want of a better word, gay rugby is that you're playing with people of the same gender as you. You're touching them all over their body. You're wrestling them to the ground, and then you're heading into the changing rooms and into the showers together. And there's a lot of behaviours in the changing rooms in men's rugby, and then in the socials as well, that could be described as homosexual sexual behaviours. It's just that it's rugby, so we're not actually gay. Is that something that you find you talk about in women's rugby as well?
Probably not as much. I think there's probably there will be some players who really need people to know that they're straight.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And I think there's probably a bit of unpacking needing to be done in terms of, okay, well, what's wrong with them? What's wrong with being gay? Because that's how it comes across when you're so desperate to be, well, no, it's not me. Stop being gay. Yeah, so I think there's more of a reluctance to be seen. It's because I think there's probably more of a reluctance to be behaving like some of the men behave with each other, because they really don't want to be seen as gay. Because I think it's probably more of a reality for a female rugby player to be to get their sexuality wrong.
Yeah.
I'm
trying to think of the word. I'm thinking what the sexuality version of misgendered. Yeah.
So I think there's probably more likely to happen in women's rugby and then become a label rather than in men's rugby, because you see that behaviour all the time. And at the Sports Awards last night, the boys go around, they're obviously really happy, having a great time. You've got one of the boys has won an award, and they're all hugging and kissing each other on the cheek and things like that. And that's really beautiful to see, and I love that. But I do wonder how they would react if someone said, oh, that's gay. Do you know what I mean? Like, would they be offended? And they were like, or would they be like, oh, whatever, shut up, I'm not interested because that's not, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen situations like that where you think, actually, that's really healthy masculinity now, to see guys hugging one another like that and, kiss on the cheek, and they're not worried about how it could be misconstrued. And hopefully it would be the case that if someone did turn around and make an outdated comment like that they'd shrug it off and they'd shut that down. Yeah. Rather than it, I feel like when I was kind of that age playing rugby, that people would probably have immediately got their defences up and I won't do that again anymore. And
so it is. Then there's quite a big difference, I think, in the male athletes or men's team and women's team in that respect.
Because obviously you touched there on the kind of battleground that women's sport has recently become with people's gender identity, and you put up some stories on your Instagram and things recently showing support for the trans community after the recent ruling from the Supreme Court on the definition of a woman. So I guess before we get stuck into the sporting aspect of that, what are you happy to talk about what your initial thoughts were when that news came out and why it's been important to you to put up those stories and things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I just think there's a genocide going on in Gaza, right? And we are so concerned with who's in a women's bathroom. I've never been attacked by a trans woman. And there's probably a really, really, really ridiculously small amount of people who might have been. That's not the problem. That's not the issue. Society, we're going through a cost of living crisis. We've got all of these struggles, right? And you think, this is a good idea to go and marginalise somebody even more than they already are, make their life even tougher. If I'm struggling, now a trans woman is going to struggle even harder, even because she's still feeling the cost of living crisis. She's going to be feeling, and I just think if you could make life easier and nicer for someone, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's such a difficult. Why you would be like, no, I don't understand why that's the thing.
It's so much easier to redesign bathrooms, toilets than to tell people that they don't exist in the basis of law. There's no logic in it, I don't think, but people have got so hung up on it that it's just... Yeah.
It's madness, and I think, you know, what's her name, JK whatever face is, like, she's saying that she's an advocate for women, but she really isn't, because she's not an advocate for me, because I get misgendered going into the toilet, and most of the time people will go like, oh, sorry, Lev, and crack on, right? But what are they going to do now? Are they going to challenge me to tell me to prove my, like, no, I'm not doing that. But I have found myself not more recently, which is I'm not proud of this, but last night I wore a suit to Sports Awards.
You looked great. I really like that suit. It was really cool.
A huge queue for the girls' toilet, and I could already see whispers in the queue, and I thought, I don't want this night to become that. So I went into the disabled toilet instead, which made my life easier in the moment, but it probably is not the right thing to do, because I'm now taking a toilet away from disabled access, aren't I? So I'm not encouraging that, but I just think that I don't think this is the issue. I think they're making this into something, this whole protect women and protect women's sport, and this is good for women's sport. And I just think, like, since when have you cared about women's sport? They're the same people tweeting that, like, we'll tweet something like, oh, why are we funding the women when the men's aren't achieving, or something like that. And I just think, like, are you well? Are you well? You're telling me you're protecting my sport and protecting me. I don't need your protection, first of all. And if I do need protection, it's probably from you. Like, sadly, why are we attacking trans women? Sorry, I'm just ranting at you there.
No, it's I think it's good to have a rant about, because it is so nonsensical, and no one seems to be being listened to, it feels like at times. For you, do you think it's because of your experiences of being misgendered, and when you said before we start recording that you're happy with she or they as your pronouns, does it feel more personal to you, or are you someone where you just have such a good sense of right and wrong that you can see that what's being done is wrong, and you would be backing trans women regardless?
I would be backing trans women regardless. I think that even if this didn't affect me, and I don't think it does on a much smaller level than what it would to a trans woman. I think I would still be here. You look at, I guess, at Gaza as an example, and I've probably been a bit outspoken about that. Well, not outspoken, that's a bit dramatic, but I've shared things about my thoughts about that, because I cannot believe as the world we are watching that happen, and being okay with it, and like I just don't get it. I just don't get it. And I really struggle with people just not being kind, and I think I've shot myself in the foot a few times doing it, because I'm quite, like, I guess when I get excited or maybe passionate about something, I will go, and then someone will tell me, like, oh, I agree with it, and then I think, oh god, and I disengage with the conversation, and I'm like, I can't deal with it, and I know that's not helping when I do that, because actually we need to have conversations about it, and we need to have conversations with those who feel like it's right, like, and understand why they feel it's right, because for me it doesn't make any sense why they think this is a good move for women. Also, there are trans men that you're now sending into a woman's bathroom. And who's going to police that? Who's policing this?
Yeah.
I just think...
And I can't remember who it was who made the point that it would be much easier for me, for example, to pass myself off as a trans man who's now being told I have to go into a women's bathroom to go into that one if I was the kind of person who wanted to go in and attack women in a bathroom. Yeah. So surely you're making these places less safe as a result of this legislation. We've seen over the last week or so certain NGBs, I feel, take the easy route and say, because of the Supreme Court ruling, we're now banning trans women from women's sport. The English FA did it, Scottish FA. they're not. It doesn't seem like they've said anything about trans men there. How does that make you feel?
It wasn't an issue, so why are we making it one? I think. So it's interesting. Yesterday, I get a phone call from an ex-Met player when I was here. So it would have been a UIC archer, actually, not a Met archer.
Yeah.
And she was saying, like, so she's furious about it as well. And she's been very vocal on social media. She's had not Welsh caps, English caps, sorry. And she's organising this. They're going to play sevens against the trans women versus cis women, and it's going to be before the final of the IGR final, so it'll be the game before that, and it's being live broadcast, which I think is fantastic. She did ask me to put my boots on, but I'm a bit broken to be playing in any sort of rugby games, especially one after the beaters. So I think she's absolutely doing the right thing. I think one of the things she's done very well is so Parliament are apparently going to stream the game and watch the game, and I think they want to invite her in. I think that's the way they're going to go to have these discussions, because I think when she showed me the stats, worldwide there were seven trans women playing rugby worldwide. And each one of those, I understand, right, that it isn't a perfect solution to it. I do understand that. There might be differences, but there's also differences between me and the props that I've played with. Or, me and the wingers I've played with, whatever. We're all different shapes and sizes. Yeah. And I played full contact against the men's team have you had the tournament Golden Oldies?
Yes.
Yeah, so I played in that, and they play mixed contact. So I've played against cis men. I didn't get injured. I had a great time. I made tackles. They tackled me. Yeah. I'm not trying to encourage that. I guess what I'm saying is that we're all different levels of robustness, and I don't know if the answer is remove the ban, but what I'm saying is that there's got to be a better solution to a ban.
Yes,
I think. So whilst if and people do this all the time, don't they? When they're arguing with you, they're like, yeah, but if Joe Marler come out as trans and then started playing rugby, would you have him playing rugby against you? And I'm like, well, no, because that's not a situation that's happening, is it? So why are we don't have to do that. What we have to do is take into account who these women are. Can we make it safe for everyone? I don't know how, but there has to be a better solution than that. There has to be. Surely.
Yeah, and I think you've kind of hit on a key point there, where you're saying about the variance between women, and then in men's sport as well, the variance between men. It feels like the debate very conveniently suddenly pretends that every woman is exactly the same and every man is exactly the same, and trans people will be completely different coming into that, and it's just not. It's not the case, is it?
And the women, they imagine in their brains, right, when they think of that scenario, is not a robust woman. It is probably a meeker woman. Do you know what I mean?
It would be that white Western ideal of femininity.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm not saying they don't exist in rugby, but that's the imagery, is they're seeing Joe Marler and this 1950s housewife type imagery, and I just think do you walk around with your eyes shut? Because that's not the world now. No. That's not what we live in. Yeah. No.
It's good to hear that you had that conversation with your former teammate who's kind of in agreement with you and doing that really good work. Have you found though that you've had difficult conversations with former teammates and friends who hold the other opinion?
There have been times, yeah, definitely. There have been times. I am probably not brilliant at managing those tough conversations, because, I go back to, if the world could be easier for everyone, wouldn't you make it easier for everyone? And that's why I feel like they don't see it that way. They're like, well, for people like me, yes, but no, that's not the world, is it? No. That's your bubble, and that's so. I don't think I've got very good arguing skills, basically. So I think my response is to tell him to get in the bin when it comes to that type of conversation. So I think I am trying to get better at engaging people, but then I get angry and then I can't control it. So I don't really help the situation then, because then they're like, oh, some angry lesbian just shouted at me about trans women, and I'm like, oh, that's not what I wanted you to take from that conversation.
But it's such an emotive issue, and it's so, I think it is a difficult one to keep your cool in when someone just is refusing to take on board facts and consider the experiences of other people.
And I think that there's also that bit around, like, there's like, why are you asking these questions? Is it from a genuine curiosity? How do we fix this problem? You're asking questions, or are you just doing it to be judgy? So there's going to be people who are maybe a little bit innocent and a bit naive, maybe sheltered from the outside world, let's say, and I've met some people like that who are genuinely curious and are like, wait, what? Like, that's a thing, like, that happens. And then through conversation, then you're like, encourage them to do their own research type stuff. But then there's some people who come to the table already ingrained that, what, trans people are bad, or whatever it is, they, like the mental illness thing, that's another one. But then being gay was also a mental illness at some point as well, so...
That's it. So much of the rhetoric is just the 70s and 60s rhetoric about gay people coming back. Okay, so big question, and to be fair, it may be something that is already happening and I'm not aware of. But if next year a trans girl joins the university and she wants to play rugby, how do you think? Leaving aside BUCS and the competition aspect for now, how do you think Met could look to integrate her into the team and ensure that she can be involved in rugby at the university?
There's so many layers to that question, isn't there? I mean, the first thing I would do is go and find somebody who is well versed on it to get me, to help me understand what a good environment looks like for a trans athlete. That would probably be my first go-to. But also be speaking to them and find out what they want to get from rugby and then how we facilitate that. I think we'd probably face some barriers because the WI did put out a trans ban. So I don't know where we sit with that. So it would probably involve a bit of research around that thing. But I think, like, for me, I think everyone should have opportunity to play sport. And going back to my experience of sport, gave me great connections, like social connections, but also like a belonging and an identity that I grew into as well. And I would want everyone to have that experience in a rugby team. So, or be, not everyone to have it, everyone to be able to have it. Yes. If you don't want to go to rugby, that's fine as well.
Do you think with the girls you've got involved in the club right now that they would be supportive and inclusive of a trans player being involved? Yes, I think there would be challenges. There definitely would be challenges. Like I mentioned before about she was boxing a man, right? So that's our starting point. There's definitely going to be some things that we have to manage and get ahead of, and probably work with the wider group around what inclusivity and diversity feels like, because that isn't something that we've had in our space. So. It's hard for people to connect with it when they're not around it. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, when they're quite far removed from it. We would also want to support. So we'd want to support that trans athlete, but we'd also want to support the players to better understand why this is important to happen, I guess. One thing I'd be really keen to know is, for you, from your experience through rugby as a player, as a coach, as a fan, if you could take one aspect of it out that you think makes the game exclusionary, it doesn't support players, what aspects of rugby might that be, and what thing would you bring in its place to make the sport? Oh my goodness, that's such a tough question.
I think the culturally bit is already kind of starting to happen in the women's game. So I think we are getting better access to female athletes through social media. And I think when there are allies in that space, and, you know, some of those aren't able to be allies because they're under contract with the NGB or with whoever they're with, there's a couple of people who probably aren't able to speak their truth and their opinions on it because of that. But I think there are enough people out there who, I don't know, are talking about it. So I think we're starting to see a change in the access to people as human beings rather than as rugby players. And I think it's the human side that we miss in sport sometimes. We see them as, you know, goal scorers or, like, depending on your sport, right? But they're human beings as well. And they may, like, Aaliyah Green, something Green. I think it's Aaliyah Green. So she was a Australian Olympic medalist in the sevens. He's now a trans men's rugby player.
Okay.
But obviously a very good rugby player. So there's nobody's worried about him and his, you know, health in the or needing protection in the men's game. I
actually remember, Elliot Green when he was playing for Australia in the
he's class.
sevens. Yeah, he was so good. Yeah, yeah. I didn't realise that he transitioned.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And I think recently started playing rugby, or more recently started playing rugby again. I think we probably need, but when, like, so personally talking about my culture and my rugby team, what I'd want to see is maybe we can do better with our onboarding and maybe a genuine connection to the same diversity values that I share. And maybe there's something in there that could get people to understand better why diversity is so important. Because I say it quite a lot. Like, I do think it's important.
Okay, coming full circle then, we started talking about the extraordinary year that you've had with the women's side here at Cardiff Met. You had been talking to me about the fact that winning BUCS was a longer term vision, maybe 2027, 2028. It's happened already. Where can this side go from here? And then what might that mean for the WRU and the women's game going forward?
It's a really good question, that is. You've asked a lot of really good questions. I think, I think the girls will be hungry for this again. Like, you know, they've had their own sort of awakening, if you like, that actually we are capable. I think that's the biggest thing, is capable. They're not going out there saying we are going to win. They know that they're capable of winning. It keeps them switched on through it and engaged and alive in what we're trying to do. They know that we're capable, so we're going to go after that. But there are things against us, and that's okay, because what we've shown this season is that actually can probably have not the most successful league season, but come good in the cup run, which, you know, is pretty good. So we know that we can do that. I think it's just about managing the expectations of the team and reminding them how hard we worked from day one of pre-season, you know, just got on, and it's just gone. It was a while ago now, but and how hard we had to work throughout that to maintain that. I think we do well when we're underdogs, but now we're top dogs. So how do you? Now the mindset has got to change. Well, it's not going to. That's not what we're going after. But the mindset could change to, actually, you got to knock us off our pedestal rather than us chasing something. Yeah. But hopefully, like, you know, we'll talk it through as a team, and it's important that we're on the journey together as staff and players, and not imposing something on the girls. We are still, our backs are still against the wall. We won't have our full availability of all of our players throughout the entire season. It's not how it works, and I think, you can start to see the benefits of it in the pathway. So we've got, I think there was Maisie, Molly, Rosie, a few girls who were in and around it, and then you've got a wider training group. So we had girls in that for the Welsh Six Nations, for the Senior Six Nations, so in the training group for that. So you can start to see the effect it's having there. But when you look at the Welsh team and you look at the amount of alumni that's in it from Cardiff Met, it's pretty impressive. What I would like is for this new group that we're working with is to push those girls to be their best, you know, because if not, these girls are hungry and they'll overtake them because they're hungry for it, and that's what we're going after as a coaching team, is just wanting the pursuit of better, you know, that relentless attitude, and we use that as one of our values and one of our behaviours. We want you to be relentless in the pursuit of better, relentless in the game, everything. Yeah. Well,
I think you've got an incredible group of women there that have already proven themselves, but I think are just going to go on to even greater and greater success, and they seem to be such a genuinely nice group of people as well. So I wish you all the best for next season. Are you going to get the chance to go to watch any of Met's alumni at the World Cup? I have looked into tickets. I think there's one day where there's I think it's Wales, Canada, Fiji, Scotland. There's like a double header at the same stadium, so I am looking into that one, hopefully. But we also talked about maybe doing like a watch party, because it will be in our pre-season. So hopefully, before everyone comes back, we'll get the SU to stream it in there and potentially have some sort of like social type thing. Well, enjoy that when it comes. Good luck for next season. And thank you very much for joining us on the Queer Voices Sports podcast. Thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, great. Thank you. Cheers. And we'll be back, of course, with more episodes of the Queer Voices Sports podcast. But in the meantime, you can follow along with all our content on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube.